All right, welcome back to the Move Better Project. Talking about some more hip extension. Today, one of the two exercises that I think I have taught, prescribed, programmed the most in my life. And this one is a stretch. This is my basic, I call it the half kneeling hip flexor stretch. So half kneeling just means one knee is on the ground. So I'm going to turn so that you can see what's going on at the hip joint and the lower back. So half kneeling, one knee down, my right knee is going to be down, the other foot is up flat on the ground. So this is my position here, and a lot of people have done a stretch in this position or do something like this a lot, but the problem is that people don't use that distinction of hip extension versus lumbar extension. What we want with this stretch is to improve hip extension. So if I am in this position and I'm doing something like this, extending my back, I'm not doing anything in terms of stretching the musculature that we're trying to lengthen. Talked in that hip extension summary video, if you haven't seen that, about psoas major, one of the hip flexor muscles, iliacus, and rectus femoris being kind of the big bad three tight hip flexors that a lot of people deal with. Well, if I'm in this position and I'm in an anterior tilt, I'm not lengthening those muscles. So what we do, set up in this position, and then the whole game is about creating what we call a posterior pelvic tilt. If this is my pelvis, I want it to tilt backwards, and that looks like this. I'm tilting my pelvis backwards. I'm trying to create a round or push out my lower back into my hand. And I'm really trying to get this glute, my right glute, to activate. If I hit that, it should be firm. That muscle should be contracted. If I'm in this position, if I'm in anterior tilt, that's not going to be working at all. So you should be able to feel your glute contract. There should be some firmness there. Once I get into that posterior pelvic tilt, you'll probably feel a stretch right there. Most people that I've worked with, they get into they say, oh, that doesn't do anything, and then we do a posterior pelvic tilt, they're like, oh wow, that does something. If that doesn't for you, if you do have a little more mobility, what you can do then is try to create some more hip extension by, again, contracting that glute and bringing the knee behind the body, but only in as much. I can only do that if I'm not dumping it out into my lower back. If I'm just extending my lumbar spine, that's not creating the change we want. So, quick summary, one knee is down, other foot's on the ground, posterior pelvic tilt, squeeze the butt, make sure your belly's tight so you're not extending your lumbar spine, and then just take it into as much hip extension as you can tolerate. Typically, I'm going to prescribe this if it's during a workout as a counterpoint to a strength training movement. It's going to be like 30 seconds. If it's more of a end of workout or kind of evening, like sustained thing, it might be up to 2 minutes. But that's the position. That's what we want to see. So when you're stretching your hip flexors, make sure you're stretching your hip flexors and not just dumping out in the lumbar extension. All right, see you next time.